Hello and welcome, Pacific Coast Watchers. In this week's episode of the Operations Brief, we bring you coverage of events unfolding in the Pacific region. Tune in as we investigate ongoing Second Thomas Shoal resupply missions that are facing relentless harassment from Chinese forces. Moreover, we're going to analyze the recent reports surrounding a Chinese submarine that has mysteriously gone down. Or has it? But that's not all. What are the Chinese building on Triton Island? Prepare to be informed and intrigued as we explore these critical topics and more on this edition of the Operations Brief, right here at the Pacific Coast Watchers Intelligence Center. Okay, first up is going to be Second Thomas Shoal. The Philippine government has tried another resupply mission out to their outpost on the shoal, which is an old U.S. tank landing ship that they grounded on the shoal in order to promote their sovereignty over it. There was two Filipino Coast Guard vessels, the BRP Sindangang, and another one which I believe was the Carabinera. But they were approached by Coast Guard vessels and maritime militia ships. 4 Coast Guard vessels, Chinese Coast Guard, and 5 maritime militia ships helped out in trying to run them off, and so they couldn't get their supplies in. Few interesting things. This has happened before. There was no water cannon used this time. They didn't try to ram the ship. They just tried to box them in and move them off course, and hoping they'd turn back. However, we had the one Coast Guard vessel, and on the hull it's 21556, came within a meter of the Sindangang. They had to reverse engines to prevent a collision, so it was pretty close. Kind of some of the other interesting things with this is the fact that they had as the Filipinos were approaching the area, they took note of a PLA Air Force Y-8Q surveillance aircraft. This is a copy of the U.S.'s old P-3 maritime surveillance planes. As the Filipino Coast Guard drew closer, the Y-8Q left the area. So they were kind of acting as the eyes for the Chinese Coast Guard and the maritime militia ships, letting them know what happened. Also, one other thing that's very interesting is that there was a PLAN frigate out there. It was a hull number 630, and it actually approached the Sindangang and came within half a mile. Now, this is the first time that we've seen the PLA Navy actively involved. Usually they're standoff about a couple hundred miles away, in case something happens with the Chinese Coast Guard and the militia ships. So that was a pretty interesting first. Overall, the Philippine Coast Guard is saying that the mission was a success because they were able to, using smaller ships than the Chinese had, they were able to outmaneuver the Chinese Coast Guard and actually make it into the shoal and drop off the supplies. Now, as I'm creating this video, today is the 11th of October, I have 2 other reports of instances of Chinese Coast Guard harassment of Filipino Coast Guard vessels. One here at Second Thomas Shoal and one over at Iroquois Reef. And I don't have the full story on them yet, but we'll get more on that as it develops. Next up, we go over to the Manila area, and the Philippines, the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, France, and Japan are all participating in an annual exercise called Sama-Sama, which means the word Sama means together. There's also a New Zealand and Indonesian Navy observers with the group. The objectives right now are for Phase 1. It's a classroom portion in discussing underway replenishment and combat casualty courses, among other things. And then as of the 10th of October, they started the sea phase to practice what they learned in the classroom and other skills like anti-aircraft operations, anti-submarine warfare, and trying to build interoperability between the fleets. And that's important because you have to know in foreign navies how people are doing things. And be able to create that plan in order to be able to work together. In other words, how does a U.S. Underway replenishment ship handle dealing with a Korean frigate? If they're not on the same page, an accident could happen. And of course, can be less efficient too. So there's quite a bit there that they're going to be working on. Our next stop takes us to Triton Island. Now this is over in the parcels, and I'm going to back this view. This is the island here. It's very small, and I'm going to back this out a little bit so you can see the rest of these islands. This is part of the Parcel Islands, and this was part of Vietnam, or originally Vietnamese islands until the 70s. The Chinese invaded those islands and took control, and as you can see in these other images, they've built quite a few facilities on these islands, like the islands farther south down in the Spratlys. Now, I'm going to show you the satellite photo from 2017 for Triton Island. And you can see that there's just not much there. There's a couple of radomes. There's a small harbor. There's a little helipad. And then this is the August satellite image. And it looks like they're scraping in a runway. So far, what we know is that the runway is about 2,000 feet long and about 45 feet wide, which is honestly pretty short and narrow as far as military runways go. It's good for obviously anything with short takeoff style aircraft, drones, helicopters, and a certain amount of turboprop cargo planes that are able to do short field landings. Now, it should be noted in the same island group here on Woody Island, they have a runway that's 9,000 feet long, and that can handle heavy bombers and fighter aircraft and more your standard complement of aircraft. So it's not a very big runway as a whole. But the other thing that's interesting too is that they're starting to build a new work area. They put in a concrete plant within the last month. And so the question out of this that nobody really has the answer to yet is, are they going to build it up like some of the others, like Mischief Reef or Subic Bay or something like that? It's a big question because this island is only 200 miles from Vietnam. And that's the closest approach they've had, with the exception out of Hainan Island up there. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with it. Our next story is up in the Yellow Sea here, and it's questionable, and even if it is a story at this point. Heard about this last month, but there was no verification on it. I picked up on it in the Nepalese press, of all places. But there was a report that was floating around about a Type 093 Chinese submarine, hull number 417, that they went down, and apparently it collided with a trap, killing 55 crewmen on board the submarine. But there was a lot of question marks to this. the trap that they were supposedly setting was for either a UK or U.S. submarine, and it was called a anchor and chain trap, and I'm going to read a description here I found online. It consists of a heavy chain that hangs between two anchors, which are laid on the seabed. The chain is usually made of heavy metal balls or other objects, and can be several miles long. When a submarine collides with the chain, it can easily get entangled in the chain, and the weight of the chain can damage the submarine's rudder and propeller, and it also prevents the submarine from moving. And in some cases, the submarine may be even pulled to the bottom of the sea by the chain. And which is all fine and dandy, but supposedly this submarine was laying this trap and became entangled in it. Which, okay, I mean, I can see that being kind of possible. But as the story goes, the crew was killed by CO2 poisoning within 6 hours after being trapped. And the issue with this is a nuclear submarine. Nuclear submarines can produce their own oxygen and their own, they're very self-sustaining vessels. So the fact that the CO2 would have been that big of an issue there, it's a little strange. And just overall, there's just a lot of things that didn't add up in this story. Did a little digging, and rumors of this accident first emerged around August 21st. And apparently it started on an anti-Chinese Communist Party social media account called Lewd Media. Now, these are this account's based out of Taiwan, and they're, of course, like it says, anti-CCP. The original post was on Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter. And it said that the Type 93 nuclear-powered attack submarine of the Communist Party of China had an accident while performing a mission in the Taiwan Strait. Now, like I said, it later on it became the Yellow Sea. So you run into that credibility issue right there. Lewd Media is a YouTube channel, and it's run by a activist who's in the past he's been accused of spreading unsubstantiated right-wing messages. So he's very much a hardliner versus the CCP, and really just overall looking at his YouTube channel just isn't a very reliable source. Now, I have heard rumors that, the gentleman went ahead and retracted it, said it wasn't true, so forth and so on. But it seems like the story's kind of taken on its own, and it popped up again this week. And at this point, the Wall Street Journal and several other media outlets are starting to run with it. And so, like I said, it's very confusing, but really I think this is just a matter of disinformation. The Chinese foreign minister was asked about the incident, and China has denied the claim, said nothing's ever happened, they're not missing any submarines. Well, how reliable are they, too? It's kind of one of those, who's the lesser two evils here, who do you believe? And the fact is we don't know, and until a submarine pops up with 417 on the side of the sail, who knows? So, moving on, we go over to Taiwan proper, and the Taiwanese Coast Guard is doing something kind of interesting. The Coast Guard vessel, the Sunhu number 7, it's a fishery patrol vessel, part of the Coast Guard, sailed from Taiwan this past Saturday for the start of a 60-day patrol in the western Central Pacific, which is pretty rare for them. It has happened before, but it's kind of a rare thing. In a statement, the Coast Guard said that the ship would make a port call over at Marshall Islands, which is one of Taiwan's diplomatic allies, one of the countries that actually recognizes Taiwan as a country. And while it's over in the Marshall Islands, it's going to be inspecting fishery resources and They call it working on marine biodiversity, counting fish, which is just basically they're trying to figure out the fish stocks that are in the Marshall Islands, and this is a joint program with them. Taiwan will also take its responsibility to strengthen maritime law enforcement and rescue operations in the area by conducting inspections on vessels in the area during the mission, the Coast Guard added. And the ship is scheduled to return to Taiwan on December 4th. So like I said, it's a pretty significant deployment for them. It's going to be interesting to watch their logistics lines and how well they're able to keep the ship supplied and so forth. I'm sure they're going to be docking in Marshall Islands, and the Marshalls are going to take care of them to some extent. But still, it's an unusual event, and it's going to be interesting to see. Our next story, we go to Thailand. And it's exercise Enduring Partners. Airmen, and this is kind of interesting, it's U.S. airmen from the Washington Air National Guard's 141st Air Refueling Wing and the Oregon Air National Guard's 142nd Refueling Wing participated, or I'm sorry, not refueling wing, it's just a wing, participated in the first ever Enduring Partners engagement in the Royal Thai Air Force from September 11th to September 21st at Korat Royal Thai Air Base in Thailand. Enduring Partners 2023 was a National Guard-sponsored state partnership program engagement aimed at improving combat readiness and combined joint interoperability between the participants while enhancing strong defense relations, and the state partnership program between the Washington Air National Guard and Thailand. The engagement included participation from approximately 230 U.S. airmen, 5 F-15Cs from the Oregon Air National Guard's 142nd Wing, 2 KC-135 Stratotackers from the Washington Wing, and 20 F-5 JAS-39 and F-16 fighters from the Royal Air Force. So they were able to go up and again, this gets back to the other exercise there about how joint and interoperability. They've got used to how each other's operates, how to do air-to-air refueling, and things like that. And it's also good to see the Air National Guard out doing this type of thing. From my 10 years in the Air Force on active duty, the Guard sometimes just doesn't get the time they need to be able to be proficient. And so any type of exercise like this, you're gaining a lot by sending the Air National Guard over there to sharpen their procedures, to work with a foreign Air Force, and get out and learn these type of things. It's a very important thing. All right, our next story is going to be the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier. The USS Ronald Reagan Strike Group has been joined by Japanese warships in the Philippine Sea, and they've been doing a multi-domain training and refining interoperability. And again, this goes back to what we've been kind of the theme of the show this week. Everybody's out exercising, and they're doing it with these foreign governments, and everybody's learning how to work together. The U.S. Navy's Carrier Strike Group 5, which includes U.S. destroyers and cruisers, have been joined by a Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force Mogami-class frigate and Merseyam-class destroyer in a series of joint operations capable of challenging, if not overmatching, China. So what this likely is, part of this, is that the Ticonderoga-class cruisers have been retired and are on the chopping block. They're being decommissioned. So with that being said, bringing the Allies in to kind of plug that capability for the time being until we can get new ships online, some of the Burke Flight 3s, destroyers, and whatnot, it actually helps to be able to to be able to deal with this while we're still trying to rebuild the Navy. And I'm just going to use that term for it, and a lot of people aren't going to like that. But, the fact is that we haven't done well by our Navy as far as budget and new ships. And we're kind of paying the price for that, I believe. Again, that's just my humble opinion, but take it for what it is. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of a fleet review here. The USS America is in still tied up at Seibo, Japan. They're still doing some joint classroom work with the Japanese, but otherwise things have been quiet with them. They haven't been out. And as scary as this sounds, and as you can see by the map, that's it as far as U.S. fleet assets in the Pacific. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Monroe is headed back to Alameda, California, and she's basically off the board at this point. So, let's get into the Chinese fleet pretty quick. Not a whole lot has changed from last week. CV-16, the Leon, is out of dry dock up here in Dillon, and is still tied up next to the empty dry dock at this point. She's just come out from the refit. She was in there for a few months. And normally when they're tied up next to the dry dock like this, they're still working on her. They're trying to fit new electronic systems and things like that just don't require the use of a dry dock. So they're still going to be there for a little while. Haven't seen any other activity around them. The cruise barge is still there, that white cruise ship looking thing with the racetrack on top. That's crew berthing so the crew can live on that while they work in the ship. So that's about all with that one. Next we go down to Hainan Island here. And we take a look at the Shandong. She's in port as of the 9th of October. Again, not too much activity. She was out earlier in September. There wasn't any press release about where she went or what she did. But she came back, which is which is common for these aircraft carriers, because remember that none of the Chinese aircraft carriers are nuclear, so they're still requiring bunker fuel to be able to be out for any length of time. Next up is going to be the Fujian CV-18, which hasn't been officially commissioned yet, but is still tied up in the dry dock, or not in the dry dock, I'm sorry, next to the dry dock doing outfitting. Then we will move to the Type 75s. The Type 75s are amphibious assault ships. They're like our Tarawa or Wasp class vessels, primarily far as the Chinese are concerned right now anyway, they're helicopter carriers, where a lot of ours have the F-35s on board, like the USS America has the F-35 wing. In the dock here, we've got the Ganji, which is its hull number 32, has been docked there as of the 29th of September. Now the areas have been getting hit quite regularly with storms and whatnot. So my Sentinel-2 satellite images, they only happen once every 3 or 4 days, and if the area is cloud cover, well, we just kind of have to guess. So on September 29th, that's where she was. Now, her sister ship has been at sea. It left sometime between September 17th and September 25th. And they're both docked to the pier, one in front of the other, prior to that. Again, I haven't seen any press releases on where she is or what's been going on. The third Type 75 is way down here in Shenzhen, and she's tied up alongside, and that was as of the 4th of October was the last satellite image, as you can see here. All the reinforced ferries that are part of the maritime militia with the reinforced stern ramps are all on their normal commercial routes and out doing commercial things and being ferries. And so that is the roundup of the fleet and the news of the week. I hope you liked this video and you found value in it. If you did, please remember to give us a thumbs up and click on the bell to receive notifications of new videos. To continue the conversation and view other content, please join us on the Pacific Coast Watchers Facebook group. The link is in the description of the YouTube video. However, I'm still new to doing videos on YouTube, and so they won't allow me to post true links down there. I've put what it should be. And on the screen is that link as well. And there's also a QR code that I've added so you can use your phone and go to the group. Just ask to join, answer a couple of questions, and we'll get you in. It's a fairly small group at this point, but we post information on fleets like we have here, news and exercises, but we also get more into the strategic level of what's going on between world leaders and different agreements and meetings and things like that. So there's a lot more information there. There's several posts and discussions going on in the group. So we'd love to have you come over and say hello. And with that, we will see you next week on the Operations Brief. Thank you for watching.